Hello and welcome. Jen Berkelman's here, soul coach and transitionary guide. I help support those, especially conscious creators and wellness practitioners and those who identify as being healers, who are moving through these times and these transitions, who are desiring to step more into authentic self-expression, desiring to step into purpose, to share their gifts with the world. And through all of that, these changes that happen, these transitions that happen, and to help provide support while navigating those times. I utilize breath work and mindful movement and yoga and soul coaching to help create spaces to find presence and peace and groundedness during these unknown and uncomfortable times. And so today, I actually wanted to talk about a big theme that comes up for a lot of creators, a lot of healers, and really anyone who is on this path of stepping into a more authentic self-expression, a more authentic and soul-guided life. When we choose that path, or really often it chooses us, it is very natural for these uncomfortable feelings to arise. And I kind of want to backtrack a little bit and talk about a post I posted yesterday. Yesterday, I posted this post on witch wounds. Okay? Now, witch wounds aren't something that only applies to people who identify as witches, but are a term to describe this deep-seated fear that can come forward within us that is really at the root intergenerational trauma that's been passed on since the time of the witch trials. And the interesting thing about the witch trials is that these people, mostly women who were persecuted, who went through all sorts of horrible deaths, were done so because they were pointed out as different from the group. And often they were put to trial simply because someone pointed a finger at them. And they could have pointed a finger at them because they didn't like them, because they wanted something they had, because they stuck out and they were a little weird. And so a lot of people died simply for being who they were. It had nothing to do with this idea of what witchcraft was, or very little to do with it. And so it's very understandable that we carry these traumas through us. It's passed down through DNA, and who knows, for some of us, we may even have past lives where we experience these in our past lives. But whether we believe that or not, this stuff, these traumas get passed down through generation and generation. And the impact of that is when we are stepping into a more authentic self-expression, that can often look like a very different way of existing than the people around us. I know for my own experience, when I moved away from home, it really gave me a chance to feel into what I desired. What did I actually like? What did I want? What did I need? And to explore that without the container of what I had been taught and told my entire life, or what I had learned. And what I found out was a lot of my likes and my interests were very different than my family, a lot of my values, a lot of my beliefs, a lot of my perspectives. Again, very different than my family of origin. And I remember, and this has been a process because this fear of being seen still comes up, but I remember how scary it was just to admit certain things about myself and how long it took to embrace those parts of myself, because there was so much fear of being rejected, of being judged, of being called out for things that I liked or enjoyed, or my perspectives, my beliefs, my values. And I felt like the more that I stepped into that, it just became so very um, scary. And, as I learned soul coaching, thank goodness I came to soul coaching, because that was a modality that gave me the tools to be able to sit with the fear that was coming up and the thoughts and the beliefs, so that I could sit with them without making them be my truth. And so this fear, this witch wound, the witch wound is essentially this fear of standing out. It's a fear of stepping into power. It's a fear of being yourself, especially if yourself and being your authentic self involves standing away from the crowd. Often, if we do admit to the truths that are arising, typically we will step away from the crowd in certain things, because we'll realize, oh, I don't really like that, and I do really like this. And so often it can show up as, like I said, the fear of being judged, the fear of being seen, the fear of being like persecuted. The only way I could say it, like for me, it showed up that I had such an intense fear of showing up on social media that I was gonna get trolls, and that I was gonna be badgered, and like people were gonna call me out and call me a liar. And it felt irrational, but it was just so consistent. And so this fear of being seen is something that is often very common, for those of us who decide to share our gifts with the world, and especially including stepping into this idea of authenticity. And so today, what I wanted to do is I wanted to guide us through a meditation, and then do a physical practice around this fear of being seen. Because when this shows up, it's often like this, there's this desire just to cave into the body. We want to just like make ourselves so small that no one can see us. And that's often the feeling that would come forward, actually, is like when I would feel into it, it was like, I just want to kind of curl up in a ball, hide under my covers, be invisible, and make myself so small that there's no way that I could possibly um, offend anybody. Because if I'm so small and I'm not taking up any space, I can't possibly offend anybody. So if I don't share my voice, if I don't take up space, if I don't speak my opinion, if I don't speak my truth, if I don't share my interests, if I, all of these things, if I just keep everything to myself, then there's no one that could be offended by that. The interesting thing is, even when I did that, I still offended people. And I offended really myself, because it caused so much pain within my body and my existence to continually push down and push away these things that wanted to come through. And it's interesting, because what it was like to experience it was almost like it was so scary and uncomfortable to step into being myself, but it was way more painful to continue to pretend to be like somebody else, to continue to pretend to be what I thought other people wanted me to be. That felt like death. And so this fear of being seen can have such an effect in how we show up for ourselves every single day, how we provide ourselves with nourishment and self-care, how we show up in our business, how we show up in our relationships. And so it can affect so many things. And so it's really good to be aware of it, to recognize it, to hold space for it. And so that's what we're going to do today. So for the session, what we're going to need is 2 yoga blocks. Now, if you don't currently have yoga blocks, I definitely suggest, if you want to form any regular practice, just even having one set is really great. You can even get them at the dollar store now, which is amazing. I think they're about like, at least here in Canada, they're about like $3 each, which is pretty good. I like to have an extra pillow. I have a couple blankets, and then I'm using a rectangle bolster, which is right here. But something that I always suggest for people, which I actually have shown there, is just like a pillow from a couch. And that would work just as good as a rectangle bolster. Okay. So we're going to start with the meditation. Ooh. All right. So getting yourself into a comfortable seated position or kneeling, whatever works for you for meditation, even sitting in a chair would work. And the first thing we're going to do is keep our eyes either open or closed and drop our awareness down into our breath. Noticing the in breath and the out breath. Noticing the flow of the breath itself. Does it feel even and smooth? Or is it uneven? Is there a sensation of holding or resistance? Sometimes it feels forced when I bring awareness to it. Is it long or short? And noticing the contrast between the inhale and the exhale, because they can show up differently. And as we bring awareness to the breath and notice these details, the invitation here is not to try and change the breath, not to try and force it to be something else, but to simply notice, oh, my breath, my inhale feels a little shorter than the exhale, and the inhale feels a little uneven, but the exhale feels a little bit smoother. So just noticing without an agenda, without an expectation. And the mind, you may have already noticed, might have placed judgments on it or wanting to change it. How can I make it smoother, longer? But we're just going to notice that's what the thoughts are. We're just going to leave it, and we're going to let the breath be as it is. And then dropping our awareness, almost as if our awareness is in an elevator. So often our awareness is more in the mind, at the top of the head. And let's drop. Imagine you're on an elevator, dropping down through your body and exiting at your sit bones. So there's two bones that are part of your pelvis. When you're sitting on a chair, we call them your sit bones. So noticing how the sit bones are connecting to the seat beneath you. The connection of your feet and your legs to the ground or the chair beneath you. And recognizing how whatever you are sitting on is meeting you, supporting you, holding you in this moment. And if we go below the seats and we go below the floor, eventually we come to Mother Earth. And so Mother Earth is always meeting us. She was always meeting us exactly as we are. She has no expectations for how we should be, how we need to show up. Regardless of what we do, she is going to meet us with every step, with every time we sit on our chair, every time we lay down. She does not care if we're tired, if our hair is messy, if we have bags under our eyes, if we feel cranky, angry, or sad. She will meet us and greet us regardless. She will hold us and support us no matter what. And so recognizing that meeting, that holding, that supporting, that is presently here, but that is always available to us. And so I'm going to drop this question for you. And by drop, what I actually mean is what we're going to do is rather than answer this question from the mind, although the mind might, want to speak up, that's okay. What we want to do is we're going to seek answers from our body experience. So imagine that we're writing this question on like a feather or a rock or a little pebble or something. And we're dropping that through the top of the head and imagining it dropping down through the body and landing in the pelvic, what we call the pelvic bowl, because the pelvis has kind of a bowl shape. So imagining it just kind of floating down through the body until it lands in the pelvis. And then what we do is we just wait. We come back to the breath, following the breath, the inhale and the exhale. Sometimes you may find it helpful to just name the inhale and name the exhale. So just inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, and just stay with the breath. And then noticing, like opening, I often say like the sunflower turns to the sun, just opening to whatever else arises. You might notice physical sensations. You might have words that come up. You might have feelings of tension within the body. You might have images or memories. And just noticing what comes up. So we're going to drop this question in. And the question is, where in your life are you shrinking yourself, hiding yourself, away a part of yourself? Are you hiding away a part of yourself or shrinking a part of yourself so that it can't be seen? So where in your life are you shrinking or hiding a part of yourself so that it can't be seen? And dropping that down through the head, down through the body. So, and then waiting until it finally rests in the pelvic bowl. And we'll see what arises. Where are we hiding or shrinking a part of ourselves to avoid being seen? And you may get many things that arise. You may get slow arising, or you may have nothing that comes up. And all of that is okay. Sometimes when I ask questions, I don't receive answers until later. I'm just trusting that they will come in their own timing. And so as these things potentially arise, just naming them. So if we were laying outside and we were watching the clouds, we would be naming them. What do they look like? That one looks puffy, and that one looks soft, and that one looks a little bit uneven. That one looks like a duck. But as the clouds pass by our eyes, like as they pass out of our view, we aren't trying to chase the cloud. We aren't trying to catch it. We just move back to our center to see what else comes into our view. And so that's what we want to do with whatever's arising here in our experience. Noticing and then coming back to center. What you'll find is your mind may want to try to make sense of what arises. It may make judgments about it. You may have feelings that come up about it, sadness or anger, fear, grief. And those are all valid and okay. They may be attached to whatever is here, and maybe why we've been pushing it down for so long. So we can also just recognize the emotion as being here, and we don't have to do anything about it. We can just let it be here, and then we can come back to our breath. And in coming back to our breath, coming back to our center, we let the body do what it does. So we don't need to make our emotions go away. We don't need to fix them. We don't need to change them. Just need to see them. And it's interesting because this whole exercise is about the fear of being seen. And often there are all of these uncomfortable things that we're pushing away that we're so afraid of seeing within ourselves. And it's such a natural thing for human beings to want to be connected to other human beings. We genuinely want to be seen for who we are. We want to be seen. We want to be understood. It's such an innate need and desire. And yet, there's often so much fear around it. And that makes sense because we may not have been received very well in our childhood, in our past, when we were being our authentic selves. It makes sense. It's okay. And in order to allow this to be maybe unraveled and released, it requires us to see and understand and hold space for the parts of us that have not been seen before. So everything gets to be here. It gets to be seen. It gets to be invited to the space. It gets to be here. And it doesn't have to mean anything. It just wants a seat at the table. It just wants to be invited. It just wants to be here. It doesn't want to be pushed away. It doesn't want to be hidden in the corner. It wants to have space. And it's beautiful because as we continue this process of naming, of seeing, of understanding, of holding space for ourselves and whatever arises, that we can naturally find more confidence in being seen as our true and authentic selves. And so it always comes back to this of what in me is desiring to be seen, what in me is desiring to be held, what in me is desiring to be understood. And when I can make space for that, when I can do that, it allows me to show up in a different way in the world. More clarity, more confidence, more truth, more love. Placing our hands on our hearts, sending love through our hands to these parts of ourselves that haven't been seen before. Just sending so much love and presence. Receiving, receiving, receiving. Let's take a collective breath in together and out, and in and out. Beautiful. All right, so let's move into our movement practice. All right, so the idea here is when we are feeling, and I'm just going to stretch out my feet a little bit. So if this resonates with you, you're welcome to do it too. Basically what I'm doing is I'm pushing into the toes, stretching the back of the feet. So when we have this feeling of not wanting to be seen or wanting to hide or make ourselves small, this idea of fear, there's a collapsing that happens. So there's a collapsing that happens within the body. And often when I feel it, it's like I just want to protect myself. So we're going to mimic this. And what we're going to do is we're going to do both. We're going to honor the collapsing and the wanting to hide. And then we're also going to open. Collapsing and hiding and honoring that feeling. And expanding. And so matching this with your breath. Breathing out here as we curve in. And breathing in as we expand back. And you may find it supportive to have a block here, but you could use the pillow. And we're going to inhale up and exhale, reach. And hold here for a second, a couple breaths. And then switching sides. Inhale up and exhale over. Breathing into the side ribs. Coming down to a seated position here. And we're going to do windshield wiper legs. So where I really feel this right now, been feeling into this energy, is it feels like there's a lot in the heart, but also in the hips, because this is so much related to our relationships and our creativity, sensuality, and sexuality. It's very much the place of the sacral. So while it is both the heart, loving, and also self-expression in the throat, it's also in the hips. All right, we're going to come into deer pose. And deer pose, make sure you guys can see. All right, so we have one leg back, as comfortable as you can. That's my kind of spot. And then right here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create circle. And we're going to raise the floor. Raise the ground. And reach around. Connecting to the breath. Important to keep breathing here. Really seeing how you can move into this movement with gentleness and ease. Sometimes we might be holding in certain areas, kind of tensing up, maybe forcing a movement, and just inviting gentleness and ease. If that means the movement becomes smaller, allowing the movement to become smaller. This isn't about being effortful, but ease. Beautiful. And then we're gonna prime our hands over our knee and bring our awareness to this hip. So the hip we're kind of leaning on. And breathing. And then coming to a lower position if that is available to you. If not, you're welcome to use your bolster to rest on. And again, breathing into the hip. If you haven't done a lot of movements in the hips, it's not uncommon to get cramping or Charlie horses here. So just being gentle and mindful. Sometimes we're not used to certain positions. And then if it feels good, you can fully relax into this, hands on the forehead. So again, just honoring your availability within this pose. What honors your body the most right now? And so even as we're in this pose, there is a caving, right? There's a curling. We're protecting our chest and our abdomen. We're curving in. So we're going to start with a couple poses where we really get this protected, curved feeling, this flexion of the spine. We can come back up and we're going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. A little bit itchy from my hair, my ponytails today. Don't know if you'll be able to hear the cracking in my hip. Our bodies make noises, and that's okay. The key thing is, you know, as my left hip is making this cracking sound, I know that can be a little bit uncomfortable when we hear that in our own bodies. It really comes down to feeling. How does it feel? This has no feeling for me. It's not uncomfortable, not painful. And that's how we gauge it. If it was uncomfortable or painful, that would be a sign to stop doing it or to change. So we brace. Actually, we start here and we're going to do our circles. So grazing the floor and the front. Again, finding ease and gentleness within this movement. And if you want to reverse it now, which we didn't do on the other side, but that's okay. You're welcome to do that. Sometimes it feels different in reverse. And we're going to brace either side of the knee and just bring awareness to the hip that we're sitting on. Coming back to our breath always. And then starting by coming down on our forearms if this is available. A few breaths here. An encouragement when I'm talking about breath too, we want to be breathing through our nose as much as possible. I know that some people may have a deviated septum or you might be clogged. But as much as possible, it's much better for our body to be breathing through the nose. And if we're efforting so much that we can't breathe through the nose, then that is a sign we need to shift something, do something different. And then coming down to the final spot here, we can either stay where we were, but if it's available to us to come right down so our torso is resting on our leg and supporting the forehead. And then coming back up. And we'll do our windshield wiper legs again. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our big pillow or bolster. I'm just going to move myself down here a bit so you can see better. All right, so what we want to do is we have it right against our hip. Okay, we're going to go back into deer pose. And then what we're going to do is with an inhale, we're going to kind of straighten the spine. Imagine a string's pulling us up, so we're elevating up, lengthening. Exhale, turn. Inhale, again, lengthening. And exhale, leaning forward, lengthening the spine over the bolster. Now this is a twist. So the key here, key things to figure out once my ponytails are out of the way, is play around with this back leg. You can go further back, straighten it out a bit. Might feel more of a stretch in the side body, but you can also bend it up. So play around with that leg. If your arms can't reach here, And we're gonna switch. You don't have to necessarily move some more center your mat. I'm just doing that so I'm more visible for you. Windshield wipering the legs. Coming into deer pose. Bringing this against your hip. Inhale, lengthening. Exhale, turning. Inhale, lengthening. Exhale, over the bolster. Again, supporting, I often find it's this arm because the other arm is quite a bit closer to the ground that needs a little support. Away with you, pigtail. You may find that this side feels different than the other. That's okay. We are often asymmetrical. See if you can relax into your props just a little bit more. If there's anything that could be released or relaxed a little bit deeper, such as your jaw or your shoulders, even your legs might be holding. Sometimes I hold in my legs, letting everything go. Coming like jelly. Noodly. Little noodle. Get any big exhales or any yawns? It's okay. It's just a sign of relaxation within the body, releasing of energy. As much as you can, try not to limit your yawns. Just let them go. And again, we're going to bring our arms to the sides, slowly pushing ourselves back up. And we're going to put our bolster to the side for now. And we're going to take our blanket here. So you'll see I have it folded up like this. I'm going to roll this. Now I want you to feel into this. What we're going to do is we're going to do a gentle back bend here. And we're going to place this just off. This is the bottom of my shoulder blade. You can feel it when you move your arm. You want that to go typically right there, so that the top of the shoulders rest on the ground. You get a little bit of puffing out of the ribs here if you place your hands here. Keep the knees bent. That'll help to be more gentle with the knees or with the lower back. And then just breathe. So we went from curving in, and now we're opening up. So symbolically, with when this fear of being seen is coming forward and there's this desire to hide and to shrink, it's okay to honor that for a moment, to let that be seen. And we did that with our poses there where we were curving in, we were protecting the front of the body, hiding under the blankets if you used a blanket. But at some point, we still want to show up. We still want to have that courage and show up in whatever way we can. Even if it's just for ourselves. And so symbolically, that's what these movements are allowing us to do, is we're embracing and honoring that curving in, but we're also in that protection. But we're also opening. We're expanding. We're going to be here a couple more minutes. I like to keep my hands on my ribs and just bring my breath here. And if this feels tight or uncomfortable, use something that's less thick. So roll it less. We don't want to feel any tension or pinching. Although it can take a moment for the body to relax into this because we're so used to curving in, especially those of us that work on computers or even driving. These back extensions is what we call them in yoga, help to balance that constant curving in that we experience from stress, from driving, from computers. All right, and to get out of this pose, just turn onto your side, bring one hand to the ground, push ourselves back up. And we can actually keep that rolled. Show you what we're going to do next. So next, we're going to take our blocks here. And depending on how high you like to be, you can either have the blocks at medium and high height, or you can do medium and low. I think I'm going to do medium low myself today. But we're going to lean our bolster or our pillow against here. And what we're going to do, we're going to do this. Okay? And then it's good to have something for our legs. Now, you can either keep your legs bent, you can straighten them out. But what I'm suggesting we do here, I think I might just use 2 blankets, is we do bound ankle, at least for a time. Important here that your legs are properly supported. We don't want to be, again, we're not focusing on building strength or stretching. We just want the muscles to be able to relax. And so you'll see again, this is a heart opening pose. We drop our hands to the side. I'm going to grab my shawl here to cover myself up. I often like in this pose, I love this shawl because it's so long and it's wide. And so I love being able to put it across my arms and wrap my hands so that they're nice and warm. I don't think I have my eye pillow close by. That can be good as well, just to put over our eyes. So we're going to stay here for 7 minutes. Yes, let's do it. And if partway through this pose you want to straighten out your legs, you're welcome to do that as well. Or to put a support underneath the knees. You may need to play around with the hand position to find one that honors your shoulders and your elbows. You can also place blankets underneath your arms as well. Bringing some movement to our fingers and our toes. And we're going to come into our final pose, just using your hands to guide yourself up. Moving the blocks to this side. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay a blanket on the mat. This is just my preference when doing laying down poses. Just feels more cozy. And then we're going to use the blocks. This is one of my favorite variations of Shavasana. Then I like to have this is my perfect head pillow. It's not too high, not too low. And then we can cover ourselves here. The ultimate in relaxation. Knock that down. Okay. So we're going to be here for about 5 minutes. Have your hands resting on your body or outstretched. Seeing what feels most supportive. Something very cozy about having the hands on the chest or the abdomen, but also something very freeing about having the arms straight out to the side. Again, relaxing the shoulders, the hands, the feet, the jaw. Releasing everything into the earth. Letting yourself melt into the support beneath you. Bringing awareness to your fingers and your toes, movement to your limbs. I find it supportive to turn over onto your side in fetal position. Taking your time here, being gentle before coming up to seated position. Taking a moment to feel into your breath. Notice how it's flowing after our session. In comparison to when we first brought our awareness to the breath. Let's take a collective breath together, breathing in through the nose and out. Thank you for sharing your practice with me today, exploring this topic of fear of being seen. Beautiful thing is more of us hold space for this, that collectively we are healing this together and making space for this energy that is felt collectively. All right. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Until next time.